with the methods of purification. Okay, beta. So there are different methods of the purification by which we can purify different substances. Okay, so we are going to discuss each method one by one. Let's suppose the first method that we are going to start, its full name is dissolving. Filtering, evaporating, and crystallizing. So this is the name of the first method: dissolving, filtering, evaporating, and crystallizing. So these are actually the 4 different steps of this first technique. Firstly, my dear students, this method is used for those substances when the two solid things like solid 1 that is mixed up in the solid 2. So both of these solids, they are mixed in each other in such a way that solid 1, it is soluble in water, whereas the solid 2, that is insoluble in water. Okay, so if the solid 1 that is soluble in water, it's not necessary that only solid 1 is soluble. Maybe solid 2 is soluble, solid 1 is in, one of the solids should be soluble and the other one that is insoluble, then you can use this technique. Okay, so this technique could only be used when one of the solid that is soluble in water and the other one that is insoluble in water. If both of the solids, they are soluble in water, the other one that is also soluble in water. Okay, so then you cannot use this technique. And if both the solids, they are insoluble in water, the other solid that is also insoluble in water, then again you cannot use this technique. Okay, this technique, my dear, could only be used for those solids, for those substances, for those mixtures in which one of the solid that is soluble in water and the other one that is insoluble in water. Then you can use the technique dissolving, filtering, evaporating, and crystallizing. Everybody got it up here?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, my dear, let's suppose you have got the two substances. The first, that is the salt, and the second thing, that is the charcoal powder. Charcoal powder, you have seen the coal, it's powder, black color powder. Okay, so if both of these things, they are mixed together, if these are going to mix together, okay, and you want to separate them, so you can use this technique. Why? Because the salt, that is soluble in water, whereas the charcoal powder, It is insoluble in water. So it means we can use this technique, and both of these things, they are solids. Both are solids. Okay. So if the two solids, they are mixed together, and one of the solid is soluble in water and the other one that is insoluble in water, then you can use the technique which is called as the dissolving, filtering, evaporating, and crystallizing. Okay. So now we have to separate the salt from the charcoal powder. So how could we do it? We have to follow the four steps. Okay. Um Everybody, please take a screenshot of it. I'm going to move to the next page. Can I move to the next page?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my dear. Uh, First of all, you have to follow the step one, and the step one, that is dissolving. Okay. So what should you do? You should take a beaker like that, put water inside it, and add the mixture of the salt plus charcoal powder in it. Okay. So salt and charcoal powder, that should be added in it. Okay. uh, the next step is when you add it. Okay, then there is a stirrer is a stick type substance which is going to stir the mixture so that the salt that will dissolve inside it, whereas the charcoal powder, it will remain insoluble inside it. Okay. So the first step is to dissolve the mixture of salt and charcoal powder in the water. Okay, so this is your step one. So what is the step one? Add mixture of salt and charcoal powder in water and stir it with the help of stirrer. Okay, so stirrer is any stick which is used to stir the water, which is going to mix up the solution. Okay, so this is your step one. Okay, now move towards the step two. Okay, the step two,
सर
that
ये
is
किस
the,
चीज के स्टेप्स हैं?
sorry,
सर किस चीज के स्टेप्स हैं?
किस चीज के steps हैं? What do you mean यार?
सर मैंने जरा लेट ज्वाइन किया तो इसलिए पूछूं कि क्या कर रहे हैं.
यार हद हो गई है वैसे यार, शदादा है तू भाई. मैं पीछे पढ़ा के अब मैं वही तो परेशान हो रहा हूँ, तुम क्या कर रहे हो भाई? ये हम टेक्निक पढ़ रहे हैं, डिसॉल्विंग, फिल्टरिंग, वेपोरेटिंग और क्रिस्टलाइजिंग, मैंने पीछे बता दिया है. ठीक है, अभी उसके स्टेप्स मैं बता रहा हूँ उसी टेक्निक के, कि अगर दो चीजें आपके पास हैं, एक पानी में सोलुबल है और एक इनसोलुबल है, तो उसके लिए ये हम मेथड यूज करते हैं. उसके डिफरेंट स्टेप्स हैं. तो पहला स्टेप, दोनों मिक्सचर को लेके पानी में डिसॉल्व कर दो. उसके बाद सेकंड स्टेप कर रहे हैं जी. द सेकंड स्टेप इज फिल्टरिंग. So what you do in the filtering, my dear, you should take a funnel. So this is the funnel, and this funnel has got the filter paper inside it. This is the filter paper. Okay, so this is filter paper, and this thing is the funnel. Okay, now what should you do? You should transfer this mixture up here like that. Okay, so what would happen, my dear students? The thing which is insoluble in water, that is the charcoal powder, it will remain on the filter paper like that. So the thing which remain on the filter paper, that is called as the residue. Its name is residue. Whereas the thing which passes through the filter paper and goes into the beaker present under it, so that thing is called as the filtrate. So this is the filtrate. So this filtrate contain salt plus water, whereas the residue, it contains charcoal powder. Charcoal powder. Okay, so this is your second step. In the second step, what should you do? Add, sorry, pass the solution through filter paper. The charcoal powder will remain on the filter paper in the form of residue, whereas salt and water will pass through filter paper. Is it clear, my dear students?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, can we move to the next page?
Yes, sir.
Okay, beta. Now
No, sir.
your charcoal.
Please, sir.
Yes, beta.
Sir, 1 minute, please. सर हम लिख रहे हैं 1 मिनट दे दें
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, guys, can I move to the next page now?
जी सर
Okay, my dear, I'm going to do the third step. The third step, that is the step 3. Step 3 is evaporating. Okay. Now, the beaker, okay, the beaker which contain the salt and water inside it. So it contains salt. The second thing, that is the water. Okay, so salt and water, now they are present. Whereas the charcoal powder, it was present on the filter paper, so it has been separated. So this is the charcoal powder. So charcoal powder has been separated now in the form of residue. Now you want to separate the salt from the water. Okay, so for that you have to do the process of the evaporating. Okay, so the process of evaporating, my dear, it could be done uh, in different ways. Okay, so how could you do it? Firstly, the first method of evaporating, just have a look up here. You take a china dish. So this is a dish. Okay, put the mixture of salt and water inside it. Salt, plus water. And the next thing is put a filter paper on it and put it in the direct sunlight. So here you are going to put it in the sunlight. So now what would happen, beta? When you put it in the sunlight, so the water that is going to evaporate from here, okay? So this filter paper present on its surface, it will prevent uh, 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 the normal evaporation. Not evaporation could be done not in a hurriedly way. It would be done in a very slowly manner, okay? Because filter paper has got different pores in it through which the water it can evaporate. So now what would happen? As a result, at the end you are going to get uh, the crystals of the salt. So crystals of salt. Now everybody just listen up here. What is meant by the word crystals? Okay, any salt. Okay, let's take the example of the copper sulfate. Okay, so copper sulfate, if it is alone present, it is always any salt. If it is alone present, it is in the form of powder. But if this salt that is attached with the water molecules like that, so these water molecules which are attached with the salt, they are called as the water of crystallization. Water of crystallization, and this thing will form the crystal. So crystal is any solid thing. It should be like that, it should be like that, okay, or it should be like that, okay? Crystal is any solid thing, my dear, keep remember. So if any salt that is alone, it is always in powder form, okay? But if salt has got the water of molecules attached with it, okay, so these water molecules attached with the salt, they are called as the water of crystallization. And water of crystallization, if it is present with the salt, they form the crystal, okay? So now keep remember, if you do this process of evaporation by direct sunlight, you will get the crystals of salt, very large crystals, okay? So this is the first method by which you can get the large crystals, okay? The second method of evaporation, just listen it. The second method, if you take the dish, okay, put the salt inside it. So this is the dish. You are going to put the salt plus water and heat it directly. So what would happen? All the water will evaporate from here, and at the end you are not going to get the crystals of the salt. The salt that would be in powder form. You got it? The salt would be in powder form, okay? You got it?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And the third method, uh, can I move to the next page?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the third method of evaporating is like that. You take a tub of water. This is the water tub, okay? Now you should put the mixture of salt or water on the top of it. So this is the mixture of salt plus water, and you are going to heat the water. You are not going to heat the uh, solution of salt and water. You are going to heat the water that is going to heat this one, okay? So as a result, the crystals are also formed. You will get the salts crystals. Salts crystals. And keep remember, the crystals of the salts, they are small crystals. So if you are going to heat the water and salt directly on the fire, so all the water would evaporate, and only salt will left behind. So you are going to get the powder salt. If you are going to put the salt and water in the sunlight, so some of the water that will evaporate, whereas some of the water that will be incorporated inside the salt to form the crystals, and you are going to get the large crystals. And this method is called as the water bath method. This is the water bath method. In the water bath method, what you do, you are not going to heat the salt and water directly. You are actually having a tub of water and you are going to heat the water. So this water is going to heat the salt and water solution. So some of the water from the salt and water that would be evaporated, and some of the salt, it contains the water of crystallization inside it, so you will get the small crystals of the salt. So this method is called as the evaporating. Now I'm going to repeat this whole stuff for you from the start. So we had started with the methods of purification. The first method was dissolving, filtering, evaporating, and crystallizing. And I've told you this method could only be used when the two solid things, they are mixed together in such a way that one of the solid is soluble in water, other one is insoluble in water. Then you can use this technique: dissolving, filtering, evaporating, and crystallizing. Okay. And if one of the solid that is soluble in water, okay, and the other one is also soluble in water, okay, then you cannot use this technique. And if both solids, they are insoluble in water, okay, so then again you cannot use this technique. Okay, so this technique could only be used when you have got the two solids which are mixed in such a way that one of the solid is soluble, the other one is insoluble. Then you can use this technique. And I've taken salt and charcoal powder up here. Salt is soluble in water, charcoal powder is insoluble in water, so we can use this technique. So what we have done in this technique, my dear, uh, we have done the first step. In the first step, the dissolving method was done. You have taken a beaker of water, put the mixture of salt and charcoal powder inside. With the help of the stirrer, okay, you are going to mix it. Okay, so with the help of the stirrer, you are going to mix it. Okay. I'm sorry, beta. Again and again, I'm getting calls. Okay, so with the help of the stirrer, you are going to mix it. Okay, so now the next step, that is the filtering. So in the filtering, what should you do? You should take a funnel, okay, and add the salt and charcoal powder mixture inside it. The charcoal powder mixture, it will remain on the filter paper, whereas the salt and water, that will pass through the filter paper and will be collected up here. Okay. Okay, so this is called as the filtrate. Okay, so this filtrate contains salt and water inside it. The charcoal powder will remain on the filter paper, okay, in the form of the residue. Okay, the next step is evaporating. You have to take a dish, okay, put the salt and water inside it and put it in the direct sunlight. In that way you will get the large crystals of the salt. If you are going to heat the salt and water mixture directly on fire, so all the water would, so you will get the salt powder up here. Okay, okay, the next method, that is the water bath method. So what is the water bath method? you will heat the water, okay, and this water is going to heat up the salt and water solution. So water will be evaporated and the salt will remain in the form of small crystals. You got it? So this is the whole method, which is called as the dissolving, filtering, evaporating, and crystallizing. Everybody got it, beta?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys. Now the next method we are going to start, that is decanting. So what is the decanting, and when we are going to use the decanting? So this method could be used, my dear, when one of the solid thing, it has been mixed in a liquid thing in such a way that the solid, it is insoluble in the liquid, and the solid has got large pieces. Okay, so then you can use this technique. So if one of the solid and liquid, they are mixed together in such a way that the solid, it is insoluble in the liquid and it has got large pieces, big pieces. So for separating them, you use the process which is called as the decanting. In decanting, I'm going to give you one example, like you have got pebbles plus water. You have seen your fish tanks, okay? In the fish tanks, you have seen that at the base there are present different pebble species like that, and the water is also present. So this is the water and these are the pebbles. So if you want to separate the water from the pebbles, so what should you do? You should carefully pour it off, okay, so that all the liquid that should be separated from the solid. So this is called as the decanting, okay. So carefully pour off the liquid in such a way that large pieces of solids are separated from the liquid, is called decanting. You got it, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the second method, my dear, to separate a solid from the liquid. When the solid, it is insoluble and it has got large pieces which are insoluble in the liquid. So you can separate them by carefully pouring off the liquid. Okay, you just pour off the liquid so that the large pieces of the solids, they are separated from the liquid. Can we move to the next page, beta?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
जी sir.
Okay, beta, the third thing, that is centrifuging. So what is the centrifuging and how you people are going to use it? So this method is also used for uh, those things in which one of the solid, is mixed in the liquid in such a way that the solid, it is insoluble, okay, in the liquid, and it has got very small pieces, forming suspension. Okay, guys. So small pieces forming suspension within the liquid. So then you can use this technique, which is called as the centrifuging. Okay. Uh, let's take the example. Let's suppose you have got mud plus water. Okay. So they are mixed together. So mud is actually having very small pieces, my dear. So mud is not soluble in water, but if you pass it through the filter paper, its pieces are so small that they could pass through the filter paper, and the water would have the mud pieces after passing it through the filter paper. Why? Because its pieces are so small that they can pass through the filter paper. Okay, they form the suspension. So even though they are not soluble in water, but they would remain suspended in the water forever. Okay. So if you want to, just like that, if you, I'm going to give you one more example of the suspension, your blood, that is also the suspension. Okay. In your blood, there is a liquid which is called as the plasma. Okay. It got white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. All these things, they are not soluble in the plasma, but they are remain suspended within the plasma. Okay. uh, so for separating them, there is a particular machine which is being used, which is called as the centrifuging machine. So the centrifuging machine is just like that. I'm going to tell you, it's like that. So if you want to separate any solid from the liquid, which has got very small pieces and forming suspension, if you want to separate them, you should fit it into the centrifuging machine. So this is the centrifuging machine. So what does the centrifuging machine, it will do? It is going to revolve and rotate these test tubes. If you people have seen the centrifuging machines in some of the scientific movies, uh, it contains a set of test tube which will rotate these test tube and will revolve these test tube like that, rotating and revolving at the same time with a particular speed. So due to which, what would happen, different things, they are separated from each other. Let's take the example of the blood. So blood contains white blood cells. The white blood cells, they will be present at the base. Okay. And then red blood cells, they will be, these are red blood cells. And then it contains platelets. And then it contains plasma. So all these things, they are separated from each other, forming the layers. Like the first layer present up here is this is second layer, this is third, and this is fourth. And just like that, mud and water, if you put it into the centrifuging machine will separate them like that. So your mud, it will be present in the base, whereas the water, it would be present on the top. So they would be separated from each other like that. Okay. So this is called as the centrifuging, and this method is only used when the solid is insoluble in the liquid, but the solid is too small that it will remain suspended within the liquid all the time. Okay. It's not soluble, but it will remain suspended. It is going to pass through the filter paper as well. Then you can use this technique, which is called as the centrifuging. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys, any question relating whatever we have done
No,
today,
sir.
you can ask. तो बेटा आज हमने 3 मेथड्स किए, डिसॉल्विंग, फिल्टरिंग, इवेपोरेटिंग, क्रिस्टलाइजिंग. दिस वाज द फर्स्ट मेथड. और ये मेथड तब कब यूज करते थे, जब दो सॉलिड चीजें एक दूसरे में मिक्स हो जाए इस तरीके से कि वन ऑफ द सॉलिड इज सॉल्युबल, अदर इज इनसॉल्युबल, देन यू कैन सेपरेट देम बाय मींस ऑफ दैट मेथड. दूसरा मेथड हमने किया है डिकेंटिंग। डिकेंटिंग तब करते हैं जब सॉलिड लिक्विड में मिक्स हो जाए और सॉलिड के बड़े बड़े पीसेस हो और वो लिक्विड में इनसॉल्युबल हो, तो उसको केयरफुली पोर ऑफ करते हैं ताकि सॉलिड सेपरेट हो जाए। सेंट्रीफ्यूजिंग हम तब करते हैं जब एक सॉलिड लिक्विड में डिसॉल्व हो जाए, इस तरीके से डिसॉल्व हो कि सॉलिड के बहुत छोटे छोटे पीस हैं और उन्होंने सस्पेंशन बनाई हुई है लिक्विड के अंदर, वो ना तो नीचे बैठ रहे हैं, फिल्टर पेपर में से भी पास हो रहे हैं और उसमें डिसॉल्व भी नहीं है। ठीक है जी, तो तब हम जो है ये वाला मेथड जो है वो यूज करते हैं जी। ठीक है, और इसके लिए एक पर्टिकुलर मशीन होती है जिसको जो है वो हम लोग सेंट्रीफ्यूजिंग मशीन कहते हैं जी। इज इट क्लियर?
Yes, sir.
चलिए जी, दैट्स इट फॉर टुडे। इंशाल्लाह ताला हैव अ नाइस टाइम। अल्लाह हाफिज।
अल्लाह हाफिज।
Allah Hafiz.